Welcome into the Summertree Sports Podcast, episode 2. Welcome in. I'm one of your hosts, Elijah, along with Braden. Hayden is manning the controls over there, close to the computer.
We have a song this week because last week was copyrighted.
You got copyrighted.
Our YouTube video went within 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It got taken down. So
it was a really bad start.
Hey, but we're here. We got it up. Episode 2. Here we are. We know last week's episode was a little bit long. We're shooting to go a lot bit shorter this week. Most of that was just due to previewing a lot of the NFL season, which if we do this again next year, we'll be able to preview that in more of the summertime, so we can spend like a whole episode even on divisions, whatever. Week number 2 of really hard week in Knoxville. I don't remember. Actually, I do remember. I was gonna say I don't remember much worse losses, but then I think back to Florida a couple years ago when Felipe Franks threw a Hail Mary.
There's been a lot of third and very, very long, or fourth and very, very long.
Yeah, and I was thinking about Antonio Callaway running up the sideline for a touchdown with a minute and a half to go when Tennessee controlled that entire game.
So this is the first 0-2 start since I think 1988 or something like that. It's been since the 80s. And it's been, I don't know. It's kind of hard to gauge whether the Georgia State loss or the BYU loss was worse.
Oh, the Georgia State loss is much worse.
As a whole, I think Tennessee played a whole lot better against BYU. As a whole, there was just a few things that didn't go right. Well, and quarterback-wise, for sure.
Georgia State, you're favored by 22 or something, and BYU, you're favored by 3. I think a lot of Tennessee fans went into that game.
I was pretty confident, honestly.
Yeah, thinking, hey, we can win this game, but there's a chance we won't win this game.
Right.
But going into Georgia State, you think there is no shot we're losing this game, and then you lose your home opener.
Right.
To
the thing that was just most
team.
Annoying to me is for the second straight week in a row, as much as I've loved Jarrett Guarantano, I just don't think he's the guy.
Yeah, he struggled. He stared down a lot of receivers, is what I noticed. And I'm not
and the thing is, you look last year, he did not do that last year at all.
Is there a guy on the team, you think? Right now?
I think it's you possibly go with a freshman, Harrison Bailey. He was pretty highly touted coming out. He's a freshman, so you're going to have those freshman woes.
But at least it's not junior woes.
But I would definitely maybe open up the competition. I don't necessarily say to the public, just because. But I would definitely say in practice, let's start running Harrison Bailey or some of these other guys with the ones and just see. Because
I just think that I think it's the first year under Jim Chaney's the offensive coordinator, and I think Jim Chaney is trying to do too many things that he could do at Georgia that he can't necessarily do at Tennessee. Like when you're at Georgia, you've got Javon Wims, and you've got all the running backs, and you've got Holyfield.
I don't really think it's that, because to me, I really do think that Tennessee has some immense talent in certain spots.
But not what Georgia had.
No,
Georgia had national championship talent. But at the same time,
I don't think Chaney's doing anything absurd, really, to make JG that way. I just don't know what the confidence level with JG is right now, and I don't believe, because last year he did not stare down receivers like this. I mean, he was looking off guys, making throws. This year he's snapping the ball and looking at one guy.
Yeah,
and I mean
it's almost it's like one read or nothing. Almost, it's like one read, an incompletion, or a sack.
I've seen multiple times. You can probably make a 5-minute long clip in 2 games of where he has thrown to some guy that has not been open, but you see your 2 or 3 other guys that are wide open and scoring opportunities.
Yeah,
I think Tennessee would be 2-0 at this point if Guarantano looked off of his receivers a little bit more.
Yeah. I still don't think they win the Georgia State game. The defense was just too bad to win. Yeah. In my opinion, they were just too bad to win that game. But Guarantano, I don't know. It's just like that. Maybe I don't know if the system is too much for him to grasp, or if he feels like he's drinking from a fire hose, or if he is trusting his wide receivers too much. But I understand trusting your wide receivers a lot. when we watched the Titans game last week, Marcus Mariota trusted a lot of his receivers. Like, you give the ball to A.J. Brown and he goes 40-something yards, but it's hard to – you can't really say, oh, I'm going to trust my wide receivers, and, you know, Juwan Jennings is running a 5-yard hitch and you stare him down and someone jumps the route. Because at that point, it doesn't matter if you trust your receivers. Juwan Jennings can't do anything about it.
You can't trust your receivers to make plays when the ball is never getting to the receiver.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the two guys that you can trust probably the most in the SEC, I believe, is Callaway and Jennings. Those guys are the two most guys that I've ever seen go after balls. Those guys can catch a dang ball, and I just don't believe that Garantano right now, I don't know if he's an SEC quarterback, as much as I hate to say it. Even from his freshman year when he started, he came out of high school as this dual threat.
I mean, he was more touted than Jalen Hurts was.
Right. And so came out 5 stars, come from New Jersey. He was this dual threat guy. From the start, I don't know if it was just Tennessee fans being spoiled from the Josh Dobbs days where he could basically make a 10-yard loss out of like a 50-yard or into a 50-yard gain with his legs. But Garantano never has looked like a dual threat to me. Every time he takes off, he just looks way too slow. He looks way too unsure about what he wants to do.
Yeah, I wish that they would give him not more reads in the passing game, but maybe some more reads in the run game where he, you know, is running a read option. And I would really like to see some 2 running back set with Eric Gray and Ty Chandler, because I think both of those guys are NFL guys. So
that's definitely a bright spot for sure. Tennessee had 250 yards combined between Chandler and Gray this week, and I think that's, if you're a Tennessee fan, it's not obviously it's always the worst start since the 80s.
Yeah,
but you look and you see guys that are on this team, and Pruitt even said earlier this week, you're going to see young guys getting the playing time now.
Yeah, and I think that's what you have to do at this point. You're 0-2. A bowl game seems pretty far-fetched. Yeah. I could see them over the next game. You know, they have Chattanooga this week, which they should win.
Right.
Should.
Hopefully.
Keyword.
Yeah, should win. But then they go to Florida. They get Georgia at home. They could be 1-6.
Right.
And so at that point, it's like, okay, a bowl game doesn't seem that attainable. Why not? You might as well throw in all your young guys.
That might be the formula to this team turning around. Maybe you see the guys that are upperclassmen now. Those are Bruce Jones players. Those aren't Pruitt players.
When you see young guys really buying in, the linebacker, I can't remember.
Henry Toto.
Yeah, he played really well, and I was really impressed with him.
Massive bright spot.
Yeah, and I was really impressed with him. I was impressed with Eric Gray, who's a freshman, Ty Chandler, who's just a sophomore. And so you see a lot of guys that seem like Jeremy Pruitt guys where those guys are buying in.
They get it completely.
And I was talking to my grandpa the other day, who is just like he just knows football, and he and I were talking, and Pruitt's defense that he runs is an extremely complex, complicated defense, and last year you could see it a lot more, and I think it was hard on his defense trying to run that, especially with like a guy like Daniel Batuli out, even the Bryce Thompson, the cornerback that was out because of some legal issues, but I think now Jeremy Pruitt's going to get his guys in there, and Jeremy Pruitt is going to win. I was listening to the radio the other day, and yes, Tennessee is 0-2. Yes, it's the worst start since the 80s. I get that. You don't need to fire Jeremy Pruitt. You are still paying Derek Dooley. You're still paying Butch Jones. Oof. Yeah, you do not need to fire Jeremy Pruitt right now, because if you fire Jeremy Pruitt, who are you going to get? If you go get Mike Leach, is Mike Leach... Okay, Mike Leach is probably better than 0-2.
Mike Leach isn't going
Why
anywhere.
would you leave Washington State? Right. He hasn't made right there.
Right. And see, that's the thing is, I think that's been a real big bugaboo kind of with Tennessee fans and the universities in general. They've been so quick to pull the trigger, and some of it even hasn't been their fault in the past 10 years. Another thing I just kind of want to bring up, Pruitt has brought back Bryce Thompson as of today. They kind of set parameters for him.
Is that the guy that tweeted about...
No. This is the guy that got arrested like 2 weeks ago for
because he threatened his girlfriend and punched a wall.
He got arrested for domestic
and said he was going to shoot
assault.
up Tennessee.
Nice.
He never
like the school,
which
Knoxville,
which you should never do that. He never. He never.
Glad we got that cleared up.
Right. He never.
You should never do that.
Not that I'm in any way taking up for him or anything like that. But he never actually hit her. He damaged some property and did say that. But they've set forth parameters for him. things that he has to meet to be able to come back to the team.
He's on a short leash.
And Pruitt says he was very confident in where he's at right now mentally.
Is he good? Like talented?
He was going to be a starting corner.
He was the number 2 corner listed on Pro Football Focus behind Tennessee's other corner, Alontae Taylor.
And Alontae Taylor was the guy that gave up the 60-yard reception,
which they were both up there in the top spots for
Alontae Taylor is a good player. Let's
that was more of him being a little bit cocky. If you watch that play over again,
someone was saying he was like 2 yards off the line.
Well, he was supposed to be playing back, and I think he got a little cocky with himself and started creeping up on the guy right as soon as he got snapped.
Well, if I'm Pruitt, a part of this,
and he got a good chewing for it.
Yeah,
he definitely got a good.
I think part of this falls on the coaches. Some of it falls on the players too, because I think Pruitt knew what to do in that situation. But why aren't how many seconds were left? Like 20 something.
Not that many.
Why not put your heels, put 3 safety deep, put your heels on the 50 and say don't let anything behind you.
Which I understand that.
You know what it is the Texans and Tennessee just got swapped.
Yeah.
The kind of defense they need to be playing.
Yeah.
So part of me was like, what? Like, why are you playing press coverage on third and a mile?
Pruitt even said that wasn't his call. Pruitt actually, I don't think he saw him immediately. He said he saw him as soon as the snap happened.
Said,
and at that point, it's too late to call timeout. Well, that's why he did get a chewing in the sidelines. He said that he definitely got the message. I don't know what happened. I'm sure he got a really good talking to.
That was rough. And as soon as that happened and I saw that it was going to overtime, I was like, Tennessee's not winning this game. I just knew based on momentum, I was like, the only way Tennessee is winning this game is if BYU coughs up a stupid fumble or a stupid interception to end the game.
It got to overtime, and it was basically just who could land blows for the longest, and Tennessee just didn't seem like they were going to have it. There's been some other pretty good games in the NCAA. I kind of want to talk about Vanderbilt and kind of where they're at too, because it's kind of interesting.
Vanderbilt's 0-2. They lose to Purdue last week. Vanderbilt looked good. They got the first score. But it was like their defense got too tired. I don't know if I
kind of had the opposite opinion about. I don't know how they looked, because going into that game, I kind of gave Vanderbilt the advantage as far as I was like, man, I feel like they could beat Purdue easily, and really, they looked good for a little bit of time during that game, but after a while, it just kind of looked like Purdue took over. Yeah,
and I think Elijah Sindelar, that's the Purdue quarterback, he's from down the road in Kentucky. I think I watched him pick apart Vandy's defense, and I thought, no one's talking about this guy. This guy is NFL. Yeah. He can sling it. And of course, they have Rondell.
Is that a testament to him, or do you think is that a testament to kind of where Vanderbilt's defense is at this point?
Probably both. I think
because Derek Mason has always been known as a defensive coach first.
And I think that you can do so much as a defensive coach, but also you want to have a defensive coach in there, and you expect him to do well, which you can scheme all you want, but if you don't have the talent, then it's hard to compete. LSU Texas was a really, really good game. I'm kind of over the whole who's the DBU conversation.
That's a dumb conversation.
Well, and it was funny, like watching the game, and Kirk Herbstreit goes, I didn't even know that Texas was in that conversation. I thought it was LSU and Ohio State and maybe Florida, but I missed too where Texas was in that conversation. Like they've had some good guys. They've had Earl Thomas, Michael Griffin. I can't really think of that many more, but LSU has had a lot of guys recently. Florida's had a lot of guys. Ohio State has had a lot of guys recently. But I saw something funny on Twitter, and LSU and Texas LSU and Texas players were chirping before the game, and one of the LSU players yells, bro, y'all give up 500 yards a week. And I was like, that's true. If you haven't watched the Big 12 in the past couple years, I mean, it's like air raid.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's kind of changed to what,
like
completely opposite of what it was.
Yeah, because back in the 90s and 2000s,
shove it down your throat.
Yeah.
Big guys, they're scoring. It's like under 20.
It's ground and pound.
It's like a 7 to 14 game or whatever.
But now it's like 59 to 40 games. And credit LSU. I honestly, when Ed Orgeron got hired there, when he was the interim coach, and then they hired him full time, I thought, oh gosh, what a mistake. That's a terrible hire. But they go out and get Joe Burrow, who was at Ohio State. They bring in some guys that can some offensive minds that can kind of play to Joe Burrow's strengths. And Joe Burrow looked like dang near NFL quarterback against Texas.
Which they were saying, I saw something today where Joe Burrow's actually on a lot of the top draft boards.
Saw that too
for quarterbacks.
That was a really good game. I was really impressed with LSU. You know what you're going to get on LSU's defensive side of the ball, but their offense played really well. They had 3 wide receivers over 100 yards.
So I think we just probably a couple more NCAA scores. I kind of want to get your opinion on Michigan and where they kind of are. I mean, I know they're playing Army. Army's a tough team to play, that kind of offense. But Jim Harbaugh, I feel like, is kind of on a narrow path.
Well, Jim Harbaugh
with
is not anymore, but at one point, Jim Harbaugh was the most overrated coach in the nation. Yeah. Now everyone's kind of figured him out, and enough people have said, hey, he's a really overrated coach that now he's not overrated. Right. It's kind of like
he hasn't been able to beat Ohio
underrated.
State.
It's like when everyone started talking about Mike Conley as the most overrated or underrated player in the NBA, and eventually so many people talk about him that it's like, okay, he's not underrated anymore. But Jim Harbaugh, super overrated, I think. I said on the podcast last week that
I thought they were going to get beat.
Well, honestly. And I thought I didn't think Michigan, before the game, I didn't think Michigan was going to get beat. I thought Army is going to keep this close game, but I didn't think Michigan was going to get beat. And really, Michigan was down 14-7. Army has the ball on the 8-yard line or something. The quarterback fakes a pitch. He goes to throw it, and Army threw the ball, I think, 5 times or something during the game. He goes back to throw it, and when he throws it, he gets hit as he throws it. He's kind of thrown it away, and he gets intercepted. That flipped the whole momentum of the game. They go in and score right there. Even if they kick a field goal, it's 21-7 or 17-7. And hey, this that's Michigan's getting beat.
That's the only game that I kept up with.
Yeah,
because
it was a really good game.
They were just giving updates I was listening to the radio, and they were just giving updates.
Yeah,
and they're like, this is a big deal. And then they're like, when they got in field goal range, for that guy, they're at 57 yards, and let's learn about this kicker. And he's like, he's never attempted a field goal. And he's like, oh yeah, he's not making this. No, there's no way.
Well, when they put that up, I was like, oh my gosh, poor guy. But they said he's never attempted a field goal, and I thought
as in
practice, ever. What do you mean?
As in he's not an actual field goal kicker,
and stands, but obviously he's attempted a field goal before. But they were like, he has never attempted a field goal ever. And I was like,
I kept saying, and I was
my gosh,
is that what they mean? I'm so confused.
They should have got a kicker before this game, but
they forgot about it.
Oh no, guys, we didn't get a kicker. So that game was really interesting. A&M Clemson. A&M's quarterback Kellen Mond didn't show up to play. I
was kind of interested to see how you thought about him.
Yeah, and it was sad because A&M's defense really showed up, but Kellen Mond, I think there was something going. I don't know.
Do you think this is going to be kind of a situation where Kellen Mond isn't who people thought he is, or do you think that's more of
I don't think so. I think he just had a rough day. I'm interested to see how his career plays out. I mean, last year against a better Clemson defense, they had 4 guys on the defensive line that got drafted, 3 of them in the first round. He put up 400 and something yards on him. So I'm like, okay, it's not that Kellen Mond is bad. I think he missed some early reads. He missed a surefire touchdown.
Really rattled the entire game.
He missed a surefire touchdown on the opening drive, and I was just like, I was like, dang, this doesn't look good. A lot of A&M fans are growing restless with Kellen Mond. I can attest to that. Seeing message boards and social media and stuff, they're growing really restless, of course, with Mond.
Those type of places like Reddit or message boards are probably the most extreme of stream opinions.
Oh yeah, and the most toxic places.
Absolutely.
A&M does have a quarterback who's a freshman. He played a little bit in the opener. His name's Zach Calzada, and he has a rocket of an arm. In the Texas State game, they said that they were talking to Jimbo Fisher, and they said, so who are some, you said that Calzada has a really good arm, who are some guys that you've coached that you compare him to? And Jimbo said, well, the one guy that I would say has had a better arm than him is Jamarcus Russell. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And you can say whatever you want about Jamarcus Russell, but they said that he could throw the ball 50 yards on his knees. And so I don't know if we end up seeing him. I think Mond got pretty banged up, so I'd be interested to see. They play Lamar this week, so I'm sure we'll see Calzada, but it was, as an A&M fan, I was kind of bummed because I was like, dang, here the defense comes out and they pitch a really good game to start out, and Mond couldn't do anything with it. The offense couldn't do anything with it. I see A&M now as an 8-4 team going into the bowl season. I think this week kind of showed me, what they're capable of, what their ceiling is. And I think in a couple of years, A&M could contend for a national championship, but right now they're really, really young, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And they lost, I think, 6 or 7 guys on the defensive side of the ball to the NFL last year. So it's not a rebuilding year for Jimbo, but they have a really hard schedule, along with breaking in a lot of new guys on defense.
He's a newer coach at the school.
Yeah.
I think Trevor Lawrence is probably the best quarterback. I want to guess say since Peyton Manning, I don't really know. When you think about college quarterbacks, you don't really think somebody, even though I'm a Tennessee fan, the first name I guess that would pop out to me as a college quarterback would be Peyton Manning. I feel like Trevor Lawrence is probably the most influential and most talented quarterback since the late 90s.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Last thing, college football, and then we're going to roll to NFL, is Hayden's Iowa Hawkeyes update of the week.
That's right, Elijah. This week we got ourselves a graphic. I didn't have time. I literally Braden made it, but I put it on the screen because I kind of forgot about it. Anyways, let's roll on to some of these statistics. Last week, whatever, Iowa took on Rutgers and absolutely demolished them 30-0. Rutgers didn't score a single freaking point, not one field goal, not 1 point. They couldn't get past this Iowa defense. That's right. On the back of Nathan Stanley, or I guess the arm of Nathan Stanley, you should say, who, by the way, has the most Iowa-sounding name in the nation. Goes 16 for 28 for 236 yards, 236 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And then they had 3 separate running backs, or people who rushed the ball, for over 50 yards. How many times are you going to see 3 people rush for 50 yards in a single game? And then next we got Emir Smith-Marset. I don't know if I said that right, but he had 4 catches. Nothing crazy. But 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. Next week, I don't know who they play.
They play Iowa State.
They play Iowa State. Battle of the Iowas. Iowa v. Iowa.
And that was your Hayden's Iowa Hawkeyes update of the week. Now I want to get into NFL. Boys.
Oh man,
it was a great opening week.
That was so much
for
fun.
the Tennessee Titans.
I needed that.
It was a great opening week for a lot of people.
Yeah, think back to last year though. Like, you open up Miami.
What a night and day difference of those two.
Oh my
games.
gosh, I'm so glad we didn't see that. Last week I thought, even if we lose this game, which we didn't, at least it's not the Miami game. That was so painful.
That game destroyed our season.
Yeah. Well, it did.
But we salvaged our season.
I mean, we did, but
my goodness.
any chances that we had of making the playoffs were pretty much destroyed right then and there. With Delaney going down and
didn't Lawan get a concussion that game? Was that the one he got knocked out?
Yeah, Lawan got a concussion, and Mariota
got
messed up his
elbow.
It's just so bad. 7 hours. Yeah,
oh my gosh.
But this week,
what a game!
Not the same.
It was. I was really impressed. The person that I was most impressed with. The two people I was most impressed with: Arthur
Brown.
Smith. And Cam Wake.
Cam Wake. That's right.
Wow, Cam Wake.
Cam
Wake was
player
productive. He only played 26 snaps.
Yeah, 26 snaps
game.
and had 2.5 sacks, a safety. He was.
Did he force the fumble too? I mean, they ended up recovering it.
I don't know if that was attributed to him or Harold Landry.
Yeah, still though.
But Cam Wake. I mean, he just the Browns.
Go look at pictures of Cam Wake.
Yeah, unbelievable. But the Browns' defensive line or offensive line was pretty depleted. Especially their left tackle got ejected because he kicked Kenny Vaccaro in the face. Greg Robinson, he got ejected. But then. They moved their right tackle to left tackle and then brought in some dude nobody had ever heard of to be their right tackle, and Cam Wake just kind of demolished him.
That guy's a monster.
Yeah,
here's a picture of him. He's still
how old is he?
37.
37.
Sure. This is him still as a Dolphin, but he looks exactly the same. Yeah. Maybe even more.
I don't know. That picture on Instagram that the Titans posted the other day was
Go find that one, Hayden. Yeah. But then the Arthur Smith, man, I was so impressed with
how refreshing was that after the way LaFleur and
the play, just everything that he schemed up was unbelievable, especially like Derrick Henry's his touchdown catch that he had.
The second TD throw to Delaney Walker was an awesome play call, and that really impressed me a lot.
Yeah, and even the first one I watched it in slow mo.
It was almost like a delayed screen almost.
Well, I'm talking about the first one Delaney had, and they faked it to Derrick Henry, and you could see all the linebackers just shift to one side of the field, and then Delaney Walker's wide open down the seam. I don't think Marcus played like an unbelievable game, but Arthur Smith definitely tapped into what Marcus is really good at.
I think that's what's going to be the difference, and I think obviously Marcus wasn't a world beater at all.
He was 50%, I think. Like
he was
almost
14 to 24.
Man, but
you got to know
almost 300 yards with 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and at this point with Marcus, you know what you have, and you know what his strengths are.
He kept some plays alive with his legs, and he really baited the Browns into some penalties that probably somebody without legs.
That is the Browns had 18 penalties for 180 plus yards.
That's another thing I was really excited to see, that the Titans did not commit hardly any. That's a very disciplined team. I think it was 6, but
when you look at next to 18. You're like,
okay, we'll take 6. Yeah. Well, I heard today on the radio that evidently after the Thursday night game, Vrabel broke down every single penalty that they called in front of the whole team and said this is going to be the difference. And I mean, that wasn't the only difference. Baker Mayfield threw 3 picks, 1 for a touchdown, but when you look at it, there was so much momentum that the Titans had. I mean, they had that one drive that stayed alive that I think they scored on the Derrick Henry touchdown run. I think it stayed alive because some of those penalties.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I was surprised. Even guys like Myles Garrett, and when Myles Garrett was at A&M, I watched him week in and week out, and I never saw him, open hand punch an opposing player. And
they lost their cool for
sure. And I think that is just kind of a first year head coaching thing that Freddie Kitchens just didn't have.
That's an attest, I think, to Vrabel also on Tennessee's side, just how well he's got a grip on those guys. Well, as far as a player and a former player and a coach and kind of their friend. Last year, they understand what he wants out of them, and he understands where they're coming from because he was in that position not too long ago.
Well, and I think something good about Vrabel, did he get drafted by the Steelers or picked up by the Steelers?
He had to work his way from it. He wasn't even that.
Yeah, he grinded from like really low on the depth chart, and then Steelers let him walk. He goes to the Patriots. He ends up becoming like a perennial linebacker, all-pro linebacker. They trade him.
Captain.
They trade him to the Chiefs, and then he works his way up in coaching. And so like he can go to any player on that team, from Marcus Mariota, who one of those guys was drafted number 2 overall, to a guy like Sharif Finch, who's an undrafted guy, and say like, hey, I've been in your spot. I know what it's like to be a captain. I know what it's like to be a guy that's working his butt off every single week to play on this field.
Yeah. One thing I did notice from Arthur Smith to LaFleur from last year is the amount of rollouts, where I think Marcus is most comfortable. That's the offense he's probably ran for his entire life.
Sure.
I remember the past 2 years, it seemed like Marcus would 3-step drop and sit in the pocket, and that's where he gets in trouble. Out of the pocket, when he rolls out, he's got he's got his decision whether I'm going to use my legs where I feel comfortable, and I can use my arm. And I feel like that's going to cut down on some of the injuries, him not just sitting there. But I think that's where he looked really comfortable. I think this is where you're looking at a coach and you're looking at an offense also from the head coach down to where they look at their quarterback as, okay, he's our guy. He's the guy that's going to take this team anywhere if it's going to be somebody that does it. And they're going to put him in the spot.
Right. The president vote him a captain for nothing.
Right. They're going to put him in the spot to succeed, to take this team where they need to go. And they're doing that his way, and they're doing that Marcus's way and not their way, forcing it onto Marcus. And I think that's a massive difference.
Yeah, and I think like even half to half adjustments. My dad and I talked at halftime, and we were texting, and he was like, "They've got to get him more in play action. That's the only thing that's worked." And with a line that was depleted this past
and
week,
they rolled play actions away from
Kevin Pamphile was out, and obviously Taylor Lewan's out, and Dennis Kelly was over there. And I think Dennis Kelly and Jamil Douglas, I think they did a really, really good job for guy. You know, next man up. They called their numbers, and I think there was a couple plays where Myles Garrett, he still had 2 sacks, but they didn't feel like, you know, like
it didn't feel like he was all over the place in front of Marcus.
Cam Wake sacks changed the game. And in the second half, I don't know that Marcus really even got touched.
It felt like for the most part, Marcus had plenty of time to figure out what he was going to do, and he felt comfortable. There was a definite pocket presence for him, or just presence in general of, yes, some of his throws weren't perfect, but yes, he had complete control of that offense. And I think that's the massive difference between an offense like LaFleur's, where he wasn't completely comfortable. Because I don't know if we're ever going to see the type of, you know, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, Phillip Rivers type arm from Marcus, where he's going to be able to stand in there, and that's just not his game. That's not the guy that he is. And I think everybody wants him to be that, and I think that's why you hear so much talk on the radio, so much talk in the media about, well, he's just not the quarterback they thought he was. I don't know how far he's going to be.
Marcus isn't the quarterback you think he should be.
Yeah, Marcus isn't the quarterback that you want him to be, and that pisses people off.
Yeah. Can we talk about Marcus's? I think it ended up being incompletion. You know, kind of a routine, whatever. But there was the play where he was being pressured.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
He goes to throw it away, and instead of taking the sack, his knee is probably this close off the ground.
Maybe. Yeah.
He's like just throwing it away.
Well, and it was crazy. Like he gets wrapped up, and so first of all, he pump fakes and tries to get him to jump. I think it was Denzel Ward. He doesn't bite on it, and so he spins out of it, and he's going down, and somehow he gets his leg out from underneath him, and his knee's about to go down, but his
probably
cleat,
a half inch away.
His cleat planted into the ground that gave him a little bit more leverage, and I was like, Baker Mayfield tried to do something kind of similar,
and completely failed,
and it was a sack. But I was just like, oh my gosh, like that was unbelievable.
Yeah. There was plenty of things.
That was like, to me, it was like, play of the game.
Yeah.
There was plenty of things about... It was the most
athletic play of the game by far.
There was things about Sunday that really energized me to be a Titans fan this year.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the defense is still top notch. They were already top 3 last year. I think they might be one of the best defense, arguably, coming the next weeks.
I think
for the NFL.
Statistically, if you were to look at it right now, we have the best defense. Not in terms of points scored, but in terms of turnovers, sacks.
And I want to also talk about how good is Kevin Byard at baiting quarterbacks.
So
I saw the
he's wonderful.
Not a play chart, but it was like a diagram essentially, and it just had numbers of players, and it charted it like the play on his pick, and they're in zone coverage, and he goes to the underneath guy, and then he circled backs once he realized who Baker's throwing to. And I was like, dang, it was pretty cool to see just a little diagram, and it's like, zoop, and then it's like, oh wait, nope, and then it's a pick. I was really impressed with Dean Pease too. I was looking on Twitter and stuff, and I won't pretend to know a ton of X's and O's about football. I'm a fan. You know, I try to understand stuff about it, but I was watching a guy who was breaking down Daquan Jones was dropping into pass coverage, and they were saying like how much that confused him, and they were saying even when they were playing cover 2 that the cornerbacks would drop and act as the 2 deep safeties, and the safeties would come down and play like man coverage essentially. And so credit to Dean Pease, like they played.
He knew who he was scheming against. Yeah. He knows Baker was still a young quarterback. Yeah. He probably hasn't seen all that before, and I'm sure it confused the mess out of Baker.
Yeah, that second, after that, like scoring drive,
it fell apart
half,
for him.
He was trying to win the game.
Yeah,
they had,
and he just was trying to do too much. Yeah. Like the Byard pick, even the one with Logan Ryan. Like Logan Ryan, it was a really great play on his part, but kind of just stepped in front of him, and then Malcolm Butler. It was Malcolm Butler one wasn't. It was kind of just
he was kind of in the right
like
place.
Salt in the wound. Yeah, it was an overthrow, and but it like. All of those were him trying to do too much, and he has a great arm, and he's a great player.
And I think that's kind of a.
I'm glad that we pooped on him. I'm really glad we did, but I do think that he's not a bum. Like some people were kind of like, "Whoa,
oh, Baker Mayfield 3 picks,
trash." And I'm like,
he's still really good.
Yeah. I think that's where you saw Baker kind of start to panic. He had that internal clock in his head sped up a little bit because of the pressure. First half, the Titans weren't getting pressure worth a dang. Well, and I said something to you guys. I was like, they're gonna have to get pressure because Baker's gonna sit back through that first drive. He come out that first drive and drove right down
the first drive. I was like,
oh man, it's gonna be a long day. But they finally figured out how to start scheming on that defensive line towards him. Yeah, and they got a little thin at offensive line.
Well, and Logan Ryan had a sack. Harold Landry had a sack. Sharif Finch had a sack.
What about that
Cam
sack
Wade, that they blew dead?
They blew dead. That was probably the worst call of the game.
Oh yeah. Well, and I understand like why they did it, but
it was right.
Yeah. And it's like, player safety. Let's not pretend the NFL cares about player safety at all. No. But I mean, it looks good for Sharif Finch. It was a sack, but I understand Baker's frustration in that moment. He's trying to go out and win a game, and they were down at that point, but I understand it's frustrating. But it's also like it's kind of give and take. Like if you're taking that sack, then you've got to, or if you don't want that sack to be on the thing, then you've got to give up a bunch of other quarterback safety stuff that the league has tried to implement. But AJ Brown looked really good, and I tweeted this that
him with the ball in his hands looks pretty dangerous,
dynamic. And I tweeted this on Sunday. I think I just had like a barrage of tweets, like so excited.
I saw a few of them. Yeah.
But I said I don't want to overreact, but this is the best. Like this is one of the best wide receivers I've ever seen in a Titans uniform. At least the best performance in a week. I mean. Who was the best wide receiver before Corey Davis got here?
Nate Washington,
like Kendall Wright,
ever?
Like Nate Washington, Kendall Wright,
Derek Mason,
Drew Bennett, like.
Wait, am I confusing Derek Mason with?
No, that's right.
Okay, yeah.
But it's just like the Titans don't have. They've never really had a good wide receiver.
Drew Bennett, baby, what you talking about?
But you look like, oh wow, the offense had a really, really good day. Adam Humphries had 1 catch. Corey Davis had 0. Yeah. So it's like
the crazy thing is everybody was saying coming up to this year, Marcus needs weapons. Now it's like, we have so many weapons. Yeah. They have so many weapons.
He brought in Adam Humphries who had 1 catch.
Yeah.
I it kind of makes me nervous. I'm like, man, wonder who is going to get pissed off first about not getting catches. I don't know if anybody does.
Yeah, I don't see the Titans bringing in that many dudes that are going to get upset. That if you bring in Antonio Brown and he doesn't get 5 targets a game, he's going to be really mad. But like Corey Davis on Derrick Henry's long touchdown reception, he's blocking at the 5-yard line. And even Derrick Henry's 99-yard run last year, he's blocking at the goal line. Like runs 99 yards.
They fit in very well with what everybody's trying to do there.
And it's all the culture. And I was going to talk about this, and the culture of the Titans has drastically changed. You know, they get a guy like Pac-Man Jones, and they kind of had a bunch of misfits on the team. You've got Vince Young, you've got Lindell White,
there was a time where
Albert Hainsworth, and you've just got some like questionable personalities. Yeah. But now starts from the top. You've got Amy Adams Strunk, who is in the tunnel hugging players after the game. Yeah. You've got Mike Vrabel, who just seems like a super awesome stand-up guy. Well, and you've got John Robinson in between them, who I know is a good guy. Then you've got Mike Vrabel, and so these players are going to have personalities. They're not robots, but you're not going to have like. You're kind of
it goes back to you're a product of your environment.
Yeah.
And the more those players are in that environment with those leaders, I feel like overall it's a real positive type leadership.
Do you think John Robinson would have drafted Taylor Lewan?
No, I've thought about that a lot. I don't think he would have.
But see, even I look at Taylor and I'm like, man, maybe at the beginning he was a little rough around the edges.
But he had the legal issues.
Right. He had stuff in college.
Yeah. Now I feel like, and probably having a family and having a little girl and everything. But he's still that chippy guy that you want on the field. And he's still that down and dirty guy on the field, but off the field, I feel like he's just the same in the locker room as those other guys. He's the leader. He's kind of a guy that steps back and looks at the bigger picture.
Yeah, and now, I mean, he's evolved so much. Like, we lost that Raiders game because he pile drives, Tajay Sharp.
And then I remember a week or two after, Akeem Talib got in a fight with whoever it was. Was it Kendall Wright or something? It was somebody. No, Nate Washington. I think it was Nate. Or I don't know. Somebody had a chop block. I can't remember. Somebody had a chop block at Akeem Talib's knees, and it went down. And you see, you see Taylor Lewan run down to the other side of the field, and just sit in the end zone,
well,
50 yards away from whatever was going on.
Seahawks game a couple years was that? 2 years ago.
Yeah,
when Richard Sherman popped Mariota and he was out of bounds. Taylor Lewan goes up to him and he gets in his face, but you can see his hands are behind his back, so he's not going to get ejected for throwing a punch.
Right,
but. So he's definitely
the enforcer that you want. He's learned how to enforce right.
Yeah, sure. And I just think the Titans locker room is so good. You got all these guys that seem like they care about each other, and you saw after Arthur Smith got the game ball, like everyone was so excited for him. Like you can teach that, but that's not like that's about drafting well and getting good guys in there that are good dudes that are glue in a locker room. Right. You've got, I don't know, like you've got some locker rooms that it seems like pandemonium, and everyone says like, oh, the Titans are slept on. I'm like, good, let everyone sleep on the Titans. I want that. I don't want us to be, number one on the ticker while they're in a college football game that so-and-so got in trouble for this or so-and-so is an illegal, but I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like if the Titans organization and the Titans fan base give them enough time, I think John Robinson and Mike Vrabel can win a Super Bowl. I really believe that.
I think so.
It kind of has that vibe of you kind of feel like they're starting a dynasty. You kind of feel like a power shift is happening almost. It's very subtle, but you feel it, especially if you live here. You feel the difference for sure of what it was and what it is now.
A year ago, I'm going into this week thinking against the Colts, thinking, oh, this is a trap game, which it still feels that way. Underestimate Jacoby Brissett, all that crap. But I'm like, okay, no, I feel really good about where Vrabel has the guys. Even after the game, people are interviewing, Logan Ryan, Kevin Byard, and they're like, and Delaney Walker, and it's like, we're already on to next week.
Yeah,
great win, good job.
They said that on the bus and the plane back, they were already just talking about Indy. They were done talking about.
And I think that's good from guys that are. I mean, I don't see Kevin Byard as a vet. He's in year 4, but I don't see him, as a veteran. But he's got a veteran mentality. Right. You know what I mean?
But he's always been one of those guys. They said from day one, he's always been that guy that's there.
Well, Dick LeBeau called him his son. So like. One of the greatest defensive minds the game's ever seen says that about your safety. Yeah. Like, might as well go ahead and pay him. Right. Real quick, I want to get into the Colts game this week. First of all, Eddie George and Steve McNair's jerseys are getting retired. I saw Eddie George's ex-wife or something is singing the national anthem, which I'm like. Cool, but also kind of weird.
It's just different world, man.
Yeah. So I'm super excited. I won't be there, but I know you will be, Hayden. But McNair and Eddie George getting their jerseys retired. I think for a lot of people, like honestly, I think there's going to be some tears in Nissan Stadium.
Yeah,
you think about what Steve McNair and Eddie George mean to the franchise. You know, Steve McNair gets drafted out of Alcorn State. Eddie George gets drafted out of Ohio State. And those guys set the tone for the first, probably, even though they weren't there, you know, forever, their entire careers, they set the tone for the first part of that franchise. And you know, the Titans move here, and then in '99 they're in the Super Bowl. Yeah. You know, so
I'm not a big fan of retiring numbers. I've always been against it, just because like hopefully the NFL lasts for 1,000 years. And eventually all these good players run out of numbers.
Well, and I think they wanted to retire McNair's, and it's like, okay, if we retire McNair's, it's kind of weird if we don't retire Eddie's.
I was gonna say that if we were retiring numbers, it's McNair and
Eddie. Yeah, the two to do.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I wanted
they're kind of the founding fathers almost.
Sure.
I wanted Tennessee Titans football.
Derrick Henry to take Eddie George's number, because I kind of like what Dallas does with their like legacy numbers.
Yeah. You kind of have to like ask permission.
And Derrick Henry's a lot like Eddie George, and the way he runs and how big he is, and the fact that Eddie George was like, "Put your head down and run a dude over," and then he's like, "Okay," and then now we get current Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and I'm excited for McNair, and I think Blaine Bishop talked about it, that like those two guys getting their jerseys retired is like a huge honor for those teams. Like for Blaine Bishop, you know, guys that Frank Wycheck that were on those teams, and it's like, oh, I got to play with these guys. So that's going to be really cool. But then they've got to play a football game. The Colts lose to the Chargers last week, which I wish they would have beaten the Chargers, because I would much rather play a team.
You shut your mouth.
Listen, I would much rather play a team that's coming off a big emotional win than an emotional loss.
Way too much into it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But like that's what I did.
I want the Colts to lose.
Yeah.
I want them to win 3 games.
You basically want the Colts to go
2 games a year. I want them to split with
beat the Jags and beat the Texans.
Yes, that's it. And then I want them to lose to the Jags and the Texans, and that's all I want. I want everyone in the division except for us to have 2 wins every year. That's it.
So Marlon Mack seems like he's going to be.
Yeah, I don't see him getting. He had 25 carries against the Chargers. I don't see him getting 25 carries a game again.
Well, he's leading, right? Like he's
he's the rushing leader right now. And even I think it was a testament to that Colts O-line. They come in the third quarter, they're down, and they go right back to the run game. I was like, dang, that's got some kahunas, Frank Reich. Like,
I think that Jacoby Brissett is maybe a bit underrated than most people think. Maybe I think, but they're also not going to be giving Jacoby the reins to take over.
Yeah, and Brissett even said, like, there was some stuff I saw on the offense, and Frank Reich was like, hey, we're kind of doing more underneath stuff right now. I could see them doing whatever it takes to beat the Titans this week for sure. Yeah. I think even 2 years ago when Andrew Luck didn't play, I was really impressed with Jacoby Brissett. We went up to Indy to watch the game, and
that was tons of fun.
The guy just has guts, and he's a winner. Like he only won 4 games, but he has that mentality. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a game manager in my opinion.
But you see him going up against, it'll be interesting to see how he does against the Titans defense. As elite as the Titans defense is.
Yeah, but it's one game for the Titans defense.
Yeah,
and
you don't want to.
I want to believe
claiming they're elite until they've done it.
Well, I don't think we have to really just base it off that one game. And they showed last year.
Right. Yeah, they're really good last year, but I don't want to say like, oh, Jacoby Brissett like playing a Super Bowl caliber defense, which I think they can be, but 1 week isn't enough. And God forbid any injuries happen, but you have to deal with that.
If Cam Wake goes down or Harold Landry goes down, our pass rush is almost non-existent after that.
So we'll see. I think it'll be a really good game. I think T.Y. Hilton has always killed us. Yeah. He always beats Adoree Jackson. I hope Malcolm Butler covers T.Y. Hilton, because T.Y. Hilton always burns Adoree Jackson. Even Adoree Jackson could be like right on his hip, and T.Y. still makes the catch. Yeah. Eric Ebron.
Well, Funchess is out now, right?
Yeah.
So
Eric Ebron will be a player to watch out for. Tight ends seem like they kind of Colts tight ends, anyways, kind of seem like they have their way with us.
I think Jayon kind of changed that a bit, which is awesome. God, I love Jayon.
Did you see? I think one of y'all sent it, but like his stats are identical to Miles Jack's.
Yes.
And Jayon was a 5th round pick.
And Jayon probably doesn't throw a fit.
Jayon isn't
like
going to get
Miles
kicked
Jack.
out of the game. Yeah.
We should
Goodness
talk about
gracious.
the Jags game.
Man, they imploded. We're not going to.
They imploded week 1.
Yeah, and we're not going to spend, we said, we're going to try and keep the podcast a little bit shorter.
Nick Foles going down with a broken collarbone probably isn't
and
the
I think that's
on week 1.
That's not good for the Jags. Gardner Minshew, though, he
did a great job. He was stepping.
I looked at his stats because the Titans game was going on, so I didn't pay a ton of attention to it. I flipped back to 22, 25, 2 touchdowns, a pick. Like, he had a really good day.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can keep that up.
That could be indicative of the
kind of the game plan.
Yeah,
of what they game plan. They game planned for
win the Super Bowl because they gotta have a good defense.
Yeah. So I think. Yeah, just their locker room. I just don't know about their culture. I think Tom Coughlin has that hard nosed, blue collar. Yeah. And they are just not that. You have a lot of boisterous personalities. You've got Miles Jack, you've got Jalen Ramsey, you've got Yannick Ngakoue. You just have a lot of dudes that I don't think have bought into Tom Coughlin's system.
Yeah.
Leonard Fournette, I don't think has bought in. They've got a lot of young wide receivers, DJ Chark. I just don't.
How weird is that you have a head coach, Doug Marrone, but then you have another guy overseeing everything.
That's that's
not
the same thing. Yeah. President of football operations.
That's weird.
Speaking of bad GMs,
kind of where
let's talk about Bill O'Brien. So they don't have a 1st round pick this year, a 1st round pick next year, or a 2nd round pick this year. They are paying Jadeveon Clowney, is it Aaron Colvin?
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Colvin and Matt Khalil a combined $16.5 million to not play for them this year.
They've got so much money tied up in I guess open ends.
Yeah, and we talked about this before we came on the pod. If any other GM does that, I think he's on the chopping block, if not fired. And I know you said you might disagree. I think
I see why.
It's just bad mismanagement.
Aaron Colvin he was bad for them last year, and then.
They paid him.
Yeah, they paid him
$18 million guaranteed.
So they're like, well, we got to roll with him. And then the last play of that Monday night game, which by the way was probably it was game of the week,
probably
game of the year.
Yeah,
it was crazy. There was like a lead change in the last 50 seconds.
Yeah,
there was three scores. There was 3 scores in the last minute.
Yeah, but he was the one that led up the catch, even though the whole defense itself was playing prevent. Which was dumb.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. You ran a 10-yard hitch and your safeties are at the 20-yard line.
I really don't understand what that play call was. And
some defense.
You listen to
all right, here we go.
You listen to Monday Night Football announcers, and they were like, "What is that?
Yeah, Booger was
just gonna throw it.
Going on?
Yeah, absolutely. You feel like Drew Brees looked at that and he was like, "Oh man,
my time to shine, baby."
100 yards was 100 plus yards was thrown against Aaron Cole in that game. So,
and I understand that he hasn't been that good, but the reason that the GM and the coach are separate typically is because the GM doesn't make hothead decisions.
Yeah.
But you've got a guy that's a head coach and the GM, and he can make a hothead decision because he's answering to the owner, and that is it.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a bad spot to put your coach in, because I feel like he has that emotional kind of. I don't know, like you said, just that. I guess it's just that emotional fire to make a rational or irrational decision. If something happens on the field, I think you have to have it
separate. Other than Bill Belichick, you don't see many people that are the GMs and the coaches and do well. You look at people that have failed miserably.
Chip Kelly.
Adam Gase, I don't think is going to work out with the Jets. Chip Kelly hasn't worked out. Yeah. I don't think Bill O'Brien is the long-term solution.
You don't know how Bill O'Brien thinks. You don't know how he kind of manages his own self.
The last thing I wanted to say about that game is by the time we play the Texans, I don't know if Deshaun Watson will be playing. He might be dead.
He gets killed.
Because
Laramie Tunsil did not make that O-line any better somehow.
2 sacks.
Yeah. Which I think
scheme and all that.
I think Dennis Kelly only let up 1.
Sure.
Just, by the way.
Which you don't know how Laramie Tunsil was kind of thrown into it. I mean, I feel like I guess offensive line is offensive line.
That doesn't change. It's block this guy
in his way, something.
The offensive line is offensive line, which I guess that doesn't really change anywhere. I don't know. I've never been an offensive lineman, so I don't really know.
I think zone and man.
And I think
which I've heard Taylor Lewan talk about it on his podcast, and him saying,
there's shout out.
There's so many.
Don't want to disrespect y'all.
Yeah, for real. Y'all are great.
Yeah, listen to it.
We love you guys. So
I don't.
I feel like there's so many intricacies with being an offensive lineman. He was talking about just lining up, and he's got so many different
But
assignments.
also, you give up 2 first rounders and a second rounder for him and Kenny Stills. You got to play him Monday Night Football
It's true,
against Cam Jordan.
He's getting in there.
Yeah,
I think that we play the Texans pretty late, like week.
we play him like almost back to back.
Yeah, it's like week 12.
Yeah.
And then by the time that happens, like he's getting
hit.
Twice.
Yeah. He got, I think, just like kind of his style is similar. Not like him and Marcus are not the same quarterback. I think Deshaun Watson has a lot more arm talent than Marcus does, but I think their styles are the same, where they are not afraid to run it and they're not afraid to take a lick. But Deshaun Watson is like, could be an MVP. Like I honestly thought if Deshaun Watson wouldn't have torn his ACL a couple years ago, I'm like, he's an MVP candidate. And this was before, all the hype of Patrick Mahomes, but they're going to do exactly the same thing that the Colts did to Andrew Luck, and they're not going to give enough help on the offensive line. I'm glad that last year they trade Dwayne Brown to the Seahawks. Now they trade for Laramie Tunsil. And so it's like, okay, it kind of seems like you don't know what you're doing, Bill O'Brien. Right. So
week 15 and 17.
Yeah, I knew it was like
he could possibly not play.
That's late.
And then everyone in the AFC South, hopefully except for Marcus, would be on their back.
Well, I think Foles will be back. But Foles will be back.
Even if we were,
but
I think the Jags are long gone out of the contention.
Hopefully, to God not. Knock on wood, like a million times. But even like you were about to say, I think even if we were at that point, we would still be better off.
Well, Marcus he took 2 or 3 sacks. I think 3, maybe 4.
Can't remember.
But there was nothing that I was like, oh gosh. And I think that's even a testament to Arthur Smith.
There was that late hit out of bounds, or that. It was a late hit, not out of bounds.
Yeah, it was on the first drive.
Yeah, he got hit pretty hard, but he bounced right back up.
When I thought that was Olivier Vernon, and Olivier Vernon was the same guy that hit him.
Hit his knee.
And when Olivier Vernon was on Miami, and I was like, oh man, I'm about to light a torch for Olivier Vernon. But it wasn't ended up.
That's where you kind of, you're like, man, I wish Taylor Lewan was out there.
Yeah.
Because. Man.
Well, and I feel like a quarterback is kind of the same thing. I don't watch a ton of hockey, but I love to see when opposing player runs into a goalie, and it's like gloves off. Don't care what happened, gloves off. Here we go. And that's how. That's Zach Mettenberger getting hit. They're probably like, yeah, whatever. But Marcus Mariota, you're like, I'll murder you.
Crawls off the field like he did.
Yeah,
LSU. And he's like,
yeah. Last thing I want to do, and we'll wrap up the podcast. Since today is September 11th, I was watching something about George Bush, and it was a couple weeks after 9/11 happened, and he goes out in a Yankees game. He's wearing a bulletproof vest, goes out on the pitcher's mound, no security detail, out on the field with him, throws a strike right down the middle, baby. W. You can say whatever you want, but he could throw a mean heater.
You say what you want about his presidency, but people love him now.
He's like a caricature.
Yeah.
So real quick, I want to go around the room and kind of talk about like your favorite, like maybe patriotic moment, or like U.S. sports. It could be Olympics. I'll start. I think my favorite, and obviously I wasn't alive for it, but it's one of my favorite movies, was The Miracle on Ice, when the U.S. took down the Soviets in the semifinals in Lake Placid. They go on to win the gold medal, but just Al Michaels. Again, you can say whatever you want about Al Michaels now, but his call of that was just chilling. Do you believe in miracles? It was like every time I watch that movie, I'm like, oh my God, I do believe in miracles. So that one is it for me.
I think mine is, and there's so many of them that you could probably choose from. I think mine was Big Papi for the Boston Red Sox.
Oh,
after
man.
the Boston Marathon bombing?
Oh,
and got out there, and that stadium was.
He gets everybody fired up. He starts dropping F-bombs.
He grabs the microphone and he just says, "This is our fucking city," and everybody was just like, "Yeah!"
And you're like, "I don't even live in Boston, but I feel that."
"Oh my gosh!" And you're like, and it's not even. It's not something you only had to live in Boston to resonate with, because that was an attack.
Big Papi obviously is not from the U.S.
Right. That was an attack again on the United States, and it was just one of those things where you're just like, yes. And it's funny, I just read like something. It was like the FCC didn't give a dang about the F-bomb, because they were just like, America.
Yeah,
like,
I love when people like that look the other way on stuff. I'm like, that's when you should do that. Good job.
Yeah. So that was great.
Mine is kind of personal. It's not like a big media thing. It was so my dad was in the military and he flew helicopters, and 2008 he was in a helicopter crash and paralyzed from the waist down. And so our family's very patriotic and we deal with a lot of wounded warriors and all this other stuff. Probably I don't know how many years it was. 2 or 3 years after the accident, we go down for a Titans Steelers game, and we go down onto the field, and my dad's presented this ball for the veterans, and he's there on the field, and we're it was like the first quarter, freezing cold. We were playing the Steelers, and
was it a Monday night? No,
it wasn't. I think it was probably a Sunday afternoon game. So everyone's cheering for Dad, and it's in here, especially in the South. I would imagine that we're gung ho for the military in America, and it was just really awesome. And it was awesome to be down there on the field and see that happen, and everyone's just cheering for Dad. I remember
I'm about to cry.
He was going back into the tunnel, and there's this guy who has this sign or something, and he goes, "I work for the VA. We're gonna fix you." And it was super cool, and that was a real great time because one, we won the game.
Yeah.
2, on the way up, this is besides the story. This is a different anecdote. We were going up in the elevator, and my dad is just sitting there, literally, and and there's this girl just standing in the elevator. And he goes, "You look like you could be a singer." And then everyone just kind of...
What a dad joke.
Yeah, everyone just goes, "Ha, ha, ha, ha." And then we really go back and sit down. And then my mom's like, "Man, that's crazy that we met Carrie Underwood in the elevator." And I was like, "What? That was Carrie Underwood? She was so small. I didn't know that was her." So it was cold.
Hayden actually thought it was a dad joke. He was like, "Oh, Dad."
It was literally Carrie Underwood.
Yeah, bro, he's not a singer. Not everyone in Nashville is a singer.
You've got one thing to say to Carrie Underwood, and your thing is, "Wow, you look like you could be a singer." Really?
Hayden would have been like,
"That is so cool."
Hayden would have been like, "Oh, them legs though," or something like that.
Not as long as I thought, but very nice.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well, that's gonna do it for episode 2. I kind of wanted to take it out on a cool note. It being September 11th and everything. So that's it for episode 2. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this podcast was a little bit better than our last one. That's our goal. It will be
only 2 minutes over an hour
for an ever and always. So thanks for listening to the Summertree Sports Podcast.
Goodbye.
Peace out.